I'm standing in the barn, hands shaking, staring at the open footlocker. 247 letters, every single one stamped "Return to Sender" in angry red ink. The paper is yellowed, creased from being handled too many times by hands that never gave up. My grandmother's handwriting loops across each envelope in careful cursive: Marin Sutherland, St. Catherine's Home, 2847 Oak Street, Portland, Oregon, 97214. The address is correct. I lived there 18 years, but the woman at the desk always said the same thing when I asked if anyone had written to me. "No mail, Marin. Nobody's looking for you." I thought nobody wanted me. I was wrong. The morning I turned 19, I walked out of St. Catherine's with $247 in my pocket and everything I owned stuffed into a single backpack. The supervisor handed me an envelope along with the cash. "Legal notice," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You'll want to read it." "Want to." Then she closed the door before I could ask what it meant. The letter was from a law firm in Portland, Owen Blackwell, attorney at law. It informed me that my grandmother, Constance Sutherland, had passed away 1 year prior. I had inherited her estate in Pinewood, Oregon. I needed to come to his office immediately to discuss the details. I didn't know I had a grandmother. The file at St. Catherine's said my parents died in a car accident when I was 1 year old. No surviving relatives, no one to claim me. I grew up believing I was alone in the world, that I'd appeared out of nowhere and would disappear just as quietly. The bus ride to downtown Portland took 40 minutes. I counted every stoplight, every block, trying to make sense of it. A grandmother, estate, words that belonged to other people's lives, not mine. The backpack sat heavy on my lap. Inside 3 t-shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, underwear, socks, a toothbrush, and a photograph I'd found tucked into my file when I was 12. A woman holding a baby. No names on the back. I'd stared at that photo so many times the edges had gone soft. Owen Blackwell's office was above a hardware store on a street that smelled like rain and old coffee. The stairs creaked. The waiting room had a dying plant in the corner and chairs with torn vinyl seats. A receptionist with gray hair and tired eyes told me to go right in. Blackwell stood when I entered. Late 50s suit, rumpled eyes shadowed like he hadn't slept in weeks. He gestured to a chair across from his desk, which was buried under stacks of files and coffee-stained papers. "Please sit." I sat. The chair wobbled. He opened a folder, pulled out documents, spread them in front of me. "Your grandmother left you 500 acres of land in Pinewood. A house, a barn, some savings, but there are complications. The property taxes haven't been paid in 10 years. The total owed is $47,312. The number hit like a fist. I had $247. Your grandmother left $18,500 in savings. It's not enough to cover the debt. So I inherit a debt." Blackwell's mouth tightened. "There's a company, Mountain Valley Holdings. They've offered to purchase the land. They'll pay the back taxes directly to the county and give you $5,000. $5,000 sounded like a fortune. It also sounded like nothing. "What's the land worth?" Blackwell's eyes shifted. "Difficult to say. It's remote, undeveloped, no utilities. The house is likely uninhabitable." "But what's it worth?" He hesitated. "If it were properly surveyed, cleared, and developed, potentially several $100,000. But in its current state with the tax burden, it's effectively worthless. So they're offering me $5,000 for something worth more. The offer expires in 72 hours. If you don't accept, the county will seize the property and you'll get nothing." I looked at the papers. My grandmother's name, Constance Sutherland, a stranger. "Did you know her?" Blackwell's jaw worked. "I handled her legal affairs for 20 years. "What was she like?" He looked away. "She was a complicated woman. She had regrets." The word hung between us. Regrets. I wondered what kind of regrets would make someone leave a piece of land to a granddaughter they'd never met. "I want to see it first, before I decide." Blackwell's face darkened. I strongly advise against that. The property is 4 hours away. There's no one there, no power, no running water. It would be a waste of your time. I stood. I have 72 hours. I'm going to see it. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. He wrote an address on a piece of paper and pushed it across the desk. Pinewood is small. Ask for the Pine Ridge Diner when you get there. Someone will help you find the property, but be careful. Careful of what. He didn't answer. Just handed me a second envelope. This was in her safe deposit box. She wanted you to have it if you ever came to claim the inheritance. I took the envelope. It was thin light. I didn't open it. The bus to Pinewood left at 6 in the morning. I bought a ticket with $23 and spent the night on a bench in the station backpack clutched against my chest. I thought about opening the envelope. My hand went to it a dozen times, but something stopped me. Once I opened it, I'd know. And knowing meant facing whatever truth my grandmother had left behind. The bus wound through mountains past forests so dense they swallowed the light. I watched the landscape change from city sprawl to farmland to wilderness. Other passengers got off at towns I'd never heard of. By the time we reached Pinewood, I was the only one left. The driver pulled over next to a gas station. End of the line. Pinewood wasn't a town so much as a handful of buildings scattered along a 2-lane road. The gas station, a post office, a general store with a hand-painted sign, and across the street the Pine Ridge Diner, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. I stepped off the bus into air so cold it burned my lungs. October in the mountains felt like winter. The driver handed me my backpack through the door, gave me a long look that might have been pity, and drove away. The diner was warm, smelled like bacon and coffee and something sweet I couldn't name. Wooden booths lined the walls. A counter ran the length of the room. 3 people sat at the counter, all of them turning to stare as I walked in. A woman appeared from the kitchen, early 60s gray hair pulled into a bun apron dusted with flour. She froze mid-step when she saw me, the coffee pot in her hand tilted, nearly spilling. "Oh my God!" Her voice cracked. The people at the counter turned to look at me again, eyes worried. You're Constance's granddaughter." I don't know how she knew. Maybe it was my face, maybe it was the way I stood there lost and alone looking for something I couldn't name. "How did you know you looked just like her?" "Exactly like her." The woman set down the coffee pot and came around the counter. Before I could step back, she pulled me into a hug. It was so sudden, so unexpected that I stood, rigid arms at my sides. I couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged me. When she pulled back, there were tears on her face. "I'm Dottie Carver. Your grandmother and I were friends for 40 years. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry she never got to meet you." The tears surprised me. This stranger crying for a woman I'd never known. "I need to get to the property. Can you tell me how to find it?" Dottie wiped her eyes. "It's 4 miles up the mountain. The road's rough. You can't walk it. My husband Luther will drive you. Sit, eat something first. You look half-starved." I wasn't hungry, but I sat. Dottie brought me eggs, toast, bacon, coffee. I ate because she stood there watching until I did. The food tasted better than anything I remembered. Luther appeared from the back, tall, lean, weathered face, hands scarred from decades of work. He looked at me the same way Dottie had, like seeing a ghost. "You ready?" I nodded. Dottie packed food into a bag, sandwiches, apples, a thermos of soup. "You take this. The house might not have anything." Outside, Luther's truck was old, paint faded, but the engine started on the first try. We drove through Pinewood in under a minute. Then the road began to climb. "Your grandmother was a good woman." Luther's voice was rough, unused to talking. "She loved this land. Wouldn't sell a single acre no matter how much they offered. Who offered Mountain Valley? Been trying to buy it for years. She always said no. Why did they want it?" He shrugged. Said they wanted to build a resort, but Constance didn't believe them. She thought they were looking for something. Looking for what? He didn't answer. We turned onto a dirt road marked by a rusted gate hanging crooked on its hinges. trees pressed close on both sides. The road was more ruts than surface, the truck jolting over rocks and gullies. After 20 minutes, the trees opened into a clearing, and there it was. The house was small, white-clapboard with a green roof, windows intact but dusty. A porch wrapped around the front, sagging on one side but still standing. And behind it, massive and red, the barn, bigger than the house, solid, waiting. Luther stopped the truck. "You want me to stay?" "No. I need to do this alone." He handed me a card with a phone number. "You need anything, you call. Dottie and I will come." I got out. The truck turned around, tires crunching on gravel, and then I was alone. The silence was absolute. No cars, no voices, just wind in the trees and the faint creak of the barn door shifting in the breeze. I walked to the house first. The porch steps groaned under my weight. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old wood and something floral I couldn't identify. Lavender, maybe. The furniture was still there. A couch with faded floral fabric, a rocking chair by the window, bookshelves crammed with paperbacks and National Geographic magazines. In the kitchen, dishes sat in the drainer next to the sink, a coffee mug on the counter empty. This was a place someone had lived. Recently enough that it didn't feel abandoned. It felt like the person who lived here had just stepped out and would be back any moment. I went upstairs. 2 bedrooms. The smaller one had a single bed, a dresser, walls painted pale yellow. The larger one had a double bed, neatly made, a quilt folded at the foot. Photographs covered the dresser top. I picked up the first one. A woman, maybe 60, standing in front of the barn. Dark hair streaked with gray, strong features, eyes that looked straight at the camera without flinching. In her arms, a baby. The baby's face was turned toward the camera, eyes wide, one small hand reaching up. I pulled the photograph from my backpack, the one I'd carried for 7 years, held them side by side. Same woman, same baby, my grandmother, me. The realization hit like falling. She'd had this photo, which meant she'd known about me, known where I was, and yet she'd never come. I set the frames down carefully, hands shaking. Opened the dresser drawers, clothes neatly folded, sweaters, jeans underneath a wooden box. I lifted it out. Walnut polished smooth with a small brass latch. I opened it. Letters, hundreds of them, stacked in perfect bundles tied with string. I pulled out the first bundle. The top letter was addressed to me. Maren Sutherland, St. Catherine's Home, 2847 Oak Street, Portland, Oregon, 97214, stamped in red, returned to sender. I pulled out another bundle. Same thing. Returned to sender. Every single letter, every envelope. Returned. My hands shook as I untied the first bundle and counted them carefully. 247 letters. Exactly. I sat on the floor back against the bed and opened the first envelope. The paper inside was thin, the handwriting careful. Dearest Maren, you are 1 year old today. I can hardly believe it's been a year since you were born. I think about you every single day, every hour. I wonder what you look like now. If you're walking, if you're saying words, I wonder if you're happy. I'm trying to find you. I hired a private investigator. He says you're at St. Catherine's in Portland. I drove there last week. I told them I was your grandmother and I wanted to see you. They said there was no child by that name. They said I was mistaken. But I'm not mistaken. I know you're there. Someone is keeping you from me. Someone is making sure we never meet. I won't give up. I promise you that. I will find a way. I love you, sweetheart. I have loved you from the moment you were born. I will love you until the day I die. Grandmother. The letter was dated 18 years ago, my first birthday. I opened the second letter, same handwriting, dated 6 months later. Dearest Maren, I sent another letter last month. It came back again. They keep saying the address doesn't exist, but I know it does. I drove past the building. I saw children playing in the yard. I stood across the street for an hour hoping to see you. I didn't. I hired a lawyer. He says without proof that you're there, there's nothing he can do. They won't release any information. They say there are privacy laws, but you're my granddaughter. Don't I have rights? I'm not giving up. I'll keep writing. Even if you never get these letters, I need you to know I tried. I love you. Grandmother. I read through the bundle. Every letter the same. Returned. She kept writing anyway, kept trying, kept hoping. I opened the second bundle, third bundle, fourth. 247 letters. One for every birthday, one for every Christmas, one for Easter, one for the first day of school each year, even though she couldn't have known when that was. The last letter was dated 1 week before she died. Dearest Maren, you're 18 now, legally an adult. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you even know I exist, but I need to tell you the truth. I failed you. I couldn't protect you the way I should have. I thought hiding you would keep you safe. Instead, it kept us apart. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. It means you came to Pinewood. It means you found these letters. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I couldn't find you. I'm sorry I couldn't hold you. I'm sorry for every birthday I missed, every Christmas, every moment we should have had together. But I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. Come home, Maren. This is your home. It always was. I love you. Grandmother. The paper blurred. I realized I was crying. Tears running down my face, dripping onto the letters, smearing the ink. She'd tried. For 18 years she'd tried. And someone had stopped her. I wiped my eyes carefully, set the letters aside, stood. My legs were shaky, but I needed to move, needed to do something with the rage building in my chest. The envelope Blackwell had given me was still in my backpack. I pulled it out, tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, a note in my grandmother's handwriting. Maren, if you're reading this, you found the letters. You know I tried to reach you. Now you need to know why I couldn't. The barn, under the floor in the northwest corner, you'll find the truth there. Be careful. The people who kept us apart are still looking. They won't stop. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Grandmother, I read it 3 times. The barn, northwest corner. I went downstairs, out the back door, across the yard. The barn doors were massive heavy wood, weathered to gray. The beam across them took both hands to lift. The doors swung open with a groan that echoed in the empty space. Inside the barn was cathedral tall. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the walls, cutting bright lines through the dust. Old farm equipment sat along one wall. A tractor rusted. Stalls that hadn't held animals in years. A loft overhead, dark and silent. I walked to the northwest corner. The floor was dirt-packed, hard as concrete. I knelt, ran my hands over the surface. Nothing. Just dirt. I stood, looked around. Tools hung on the wall. I grabbed a shovel, went back to the corner and started digging. The dirt was harder than I expected. My hands blistered within minutes. I kept digging. 6 inches down, a foot, 2 feet. The shovel hit something solid. I dropped to my knees, scraped dirt away with my hands. Wood. A trapdoor. It took 10 minutes to clear enough dirt to see the edges. The door was 3 feet square, rough planks fitted tight. Iron rings on either side for handles. I pulled. It didn't budge. I braced my feet against the wall and pulled again. The wood groaned. Dirt cascaded into the crack as the door shifted. One more pull and it lifted free. Beneath was darkness. A hole 4 feet deep, concrete walls, and at the bottom a green metal footlocker. Military issue, locked with a heavy padlock. I climbed down. The footlocker was heavier than it looked. I dragged it to the edge, pushed it up and out, then climbed back up myself. The padlock was old, rusted. I found a crowbar hanging on the wall, wedged it into the shackle and put my full weight on it. The lock snapped. I opened the footlocker. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were bundles, brown paper bound with rubber bands. I picked up one bundle, unwrapped it. Money, $100 bills, crisp and new. I counted. 100 bills, $10,000. I unwrapped another bundle. Same thing, another, 15 bundles, $150,000. Beneath the money, a leather-bound book, a ledger, the kind with columns for dates and amounts. I opened it. The first page was dated 18 years ago. A list of names, dates, locations, routes through the mountains, quantities, prices, my grandmother's handwriting. The second page, more names, more routes, this time with notes, police officers, county officials, names I didn't recognize but were clearly people in positions of power. I flipped through the ledger. 18 years of records. Meticulous. Detailed. Evidence of something massive. At the bottom of the footlocker beneath the ledger was another bundle of papers. I pulled them out. Copies of the letters. All 247 of them. She'd kept copies. And beneath those, one more envelope. My name on the front. I opened it. Marin, if you're reading this, you found the money and the ledger. You found the truth I've been hiding for 18 years. Your parents, Nathan and Evelyn Sutherland, worked for a company called Whitmore Logistics. They discovered the company was running drugs and weapons through the mountains. They were going to report it to the FBI. 2 weeks before they could, their car went off a cliff on Highway 26. The police said it was an accident. Your mother lost control on a curve. It wasn't an accident. You were in the car. You survived because your car seat was thrown clear. You were 1 year old. I knew if the people who killed your parents found out you existed, they would kill you too. So I hid you. I called in a favor from someone I trusted and had you placed in St. Catherine's under a false name. I thought it would be temporary. I thought once I had enough evidence I could go to the authorities and you would be safe. But Whitmore Logistics became Mountain Valley Holdings. They grew, they bought people, police, judges, politicians. The more I learned, the more dangerous it became. I tried to reach you. Every letter came back. I drove to Portland a dozen times. They wouldn't let me see you. Someone at the home was paid to make sure you disappeared. I kept the evidence. I kept gathering more. The ledger has everything. Names, dates, routes, proof that Mountain Valley has been running a criminal empire for 20 years. The money is dirty. It came from them. I took it years ago, planning to use it against them. Instead, I'm leaving it to you. Use it to pay the taxes. Use it to keep this land. Don't let them have it. They're looking for the ledger. They know I had it. That's why they want this property. They think it's buried here. Give the ledger to the FBI. Finish what your parents started. Bring them down. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you better. I'm sorry I had to hide you. I'm sorry we never got to meet. But you're strong. I know you are. You survived when you shouldn't have. You made it to adulthood alone. You're stronger than you know. Come home, Marin. Fight. Make them pay for what they took from us. I love you. I have always loved you. I will love you forever. Grandmother Constance. The letter shook in my hands. My parents, murdered, because they tried to do the right thing. And I'd been hidden, erased, kept from the one person who loved me, who tried to find me, who never gave up. I looked at the money. $150,000, enough to pay the taxes, enough to keep the land. I looked at the ledger. 18 years of evidence, proof of murder, corruption, trafficking. The barn door creaked. I spun around. A man stood in the doorway, 50s expensive suit, perfectly styled hair. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Marin Sutherland, I was hoping you'd come. Who are you, Preston Whitmore? I believe you have something that belongs to me. I closed the footlocker with my foot. I don't know what you're talking about. His smile widened. Your grandmother was a stubborn woman, refused every offer I made. 50,000, 100,000, $500,000, she wouldn't sell. This land isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Marin. It's just a matter of price. I'm prepared to offer you $200,000 cash. Today, you sign over the deed, walk away, start a new life. No. The smile vanished. You don't understand the situation you're in. This land has something I need, something your grandmother stole from me. I'm giving you a chance to hand it over peacefully. I don't have anything of yours. Whitmore stepped into the barn. 2 men appeared behind him, large silent hands in their jacket pockets. You have 48 hours. After that, I'll take what's mine. and you won't like how I do it." He turned and walked out. The two men followed. I heard a car engine start, tires on gravel, and then silence. My heart hammered. I looked down at the footlocker, at the ledger inside. This was what he wanted, the evidence that could destroy him. I pulled out my phone. No signal. I'd have to go back to town. I dragged the footlocker to the house, up the stairs into my grandmother's bedroom, shoved it under the bed, covered it with the quilt. Then I grabbed the bag Dottie had packed and sat on the porch steps eating a sandwich I couldn't taste, watching the sun sink behind the trees 48 hours. I thought about the 247 letters, about the 18 years my grandmother spent searching for me, about my parents who died trying to do the right thing. I thought about Preston Whitmore's smile, about the two men with their hands in their pockets, and I thought about Owen Blackwell's face when he told me to be careful. Everyone knew. Everyone had known all along. I finished the sandwich, drank water from the thermos, watched darkness swallow the clearing. Then I went inside, locked the doors, and lay down on my grandmother's bed with the footlocker beneath me. I didn't sleep. I read every single letter again, all 247 of them. By the time the sun came up, I'd made my decision. I wasn't selling, I wasn't running, I wasn't disappearing again. This was my home. My grandmother had said so. She'd fought for 18 years to find me, to protect me, to give me this. I was going to finish what she started. The walk down the mountain took an hour. My legs burned by the time I reached the main road, but I didn't stop. The sun was barely up, the air cold enough to see my breath. I kept my hand in my jacket pocket, fingers wrapped around the key to the footlocker I'd left hidden under the bed. The Pine Ridge Diner was open. Through the window I could see Dottie moving between tables, coffee pot in hand. I pushed through the door and the warmth hit me like a wall. Dottie looked up and her face changed. She set down the pot and came around the counter. "What happened? I need to use your phone. Mine doesn't have service up here." She pointed to the back. "Office. Doors open." The office was cramped, smelling of coffee and old paperwork. The phone sat on a desk buried under receipts. I pulled out the card Owen Blackwell had given me and dialed. He answered on the third ring, voice rough with sleep. "Blackwell. It's Marin Sutherland. I'm not selling." Silence. Then a long exhale. "You went to the property. Preston Whitmore came to see me yesterday. He threatened me." Another silence, longer this time. "What did he say? That he'd give me 48 hours to hand over what my grandmother stole from him? What does he think she stole?" Blackwell's breathing was audible over the line. "You need to leave Pinewood. Today. Go back to Portland. Sign the papers. Take the money and disappear." "No." "Marin, you don't understand what you're dealing with. Preston Whitmore is not a man who makes empty threats. I found the letters, all of them. I know what happened to my parents." The line went silent. For a moment I thought he'd hung up. "Then you know why you need to leave. Your grandmother spent 18 years hiding you. Don't waste that by getting yourself killed. She left me evidence, a ledger, 18 years of records, everything Whitmore's done." Blackwell's voice turned sharp. "Where is it safe? And it's going to the FBI." "No, absolutely not. You have no idea how deep this goes. Whitmore owns people, police, judges. You walk into the wrong office and you'll disappear. Then I'll find the right office." Blackwell made a sound like a man in pain. "Your grandmother tried that. She spent years gathering evidence, trying to find someone she could trust. She never did. That's why she hid it. That's why she hid you. Maybe she didn't find the right person, but I will. Marin, please, I'm begging you, take the money, leave, live your life. Did he pay you to make sure I'd sell?" The silence was answer enough. "How much?" 50,000 paid into my account the day your grandmother died. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. But it's there. And you were supposed to convince me to sign. I was supposed to make sure you never came to Pinewood at all. I was supposed to tell you the estate was worthless and you should let the county take it. But when I saw you in my office looking just like her, I couldn't do it. So you gave me the option to come here. I gave you a choice. I hoped you'd be smarter than Constance. I hoped you'd take the money and run. I'm not running. Then you're going to die." He hung up. I stood there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. My hand was shaking. Dottie appeared in the doorway. "You all right, sweetheart? I need to know who my grandmother trusted. Who did she talk to?" Dottie leaned against the doorframe. Constance didn't trust easily. After what happened to your parents, she barely talked to anyone. Kept to herself mostly. But she talked to you. We were friends. She'd come in for coffee, we'd chat. But she never told me much, never mentioned you. Did she mention anyone else? Someone she might have gone to for help? Dottie frowned, thinking. There was a reporter. Came through town maybe 10 years back. Young woman asking questions about the accident that killed your parents. Constance met with her a few times, but then the reporter left and never came back. Do you remember her name? Angela something. From Portland, I think. Worked for the Oregonian. I committed the name to memory. Anyone else Luther might know more. He and Constance talked sometimes. He did work on her property. Can I talk to him? He's out back, fixing the freezer. Luther was exactly where Dottie said, tools spread on the ground, hands black with grease. He looked up when I approached. Your grandmother was careful. She knew people were watching her. Did she ever tell you what she was afraid of? Not in so many words. But I saw things. Cars that would drive by her property. Same cars, different times. Never stopping, just watching. Did you recognize them? Luther wiped his hands on a rag. One of them was a sheriff's deputy. Guy named Curtis. He'd drive past once a week like clockwork. Is he still around? Retired last year? Lives in town. I need to talk to him. Luther's eyes narrowed. Curtis is on Whitmore's payroll, has been for years. You go near him, he'll know. Then I need to be careful. Luther stood, joints creaking. Constance tried being careful. It didn't save her. What do you mean she died of a heart attack? That's what the death certificate says, but she was healthy. Took walks every day. Ate right, never smoked. And then one morning she's dead in her kitchen. You think someone killed her? I think Constance knew too much and lived too long. I think they got tired of waiting for her to die naturally. Did you tell anyone this? Who would I tell? The sheriff, the coroner? They're all on the payroll. What about the FBI? Luther laughed bitter. You ever try calling the FBI? They don't just show up because some old logger in the mountains thinks something's fishy. You need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that can't be ignored. I have evidence. His expression changed. What kind? The kind that could put Whitmore in prison for the rest of his life. Where is it hidden? And it's staying hidden until I can get it to someone I trust. Luther studied my face. You look like her, you know. Not just your features, the way you stand, the way you set your jaw when you've made up your mind. Did you know my parents? I knew your father. Nathan was a good man. Worked hard. Loved your mother more than anything. When you were born, he carried you around like you were made of glass. Showed you to everyone in town. What happened the night they died? Luther's face darkened. Your father called me 2 days before the accident. Said he needed to talk. Sounded scared. I told him to come by the house. He never showed. Next thing I heard, his car went off the cliff on 26. Did the police investigate? They did a report. Ruled it an accident. Said Nathan was speeding, lost control on a wet road. But you don't believe that. Nathan grew up in these mountains. He knew every curve on that road. And it wasn't raining that night. So someone ran them off the road. Or rigged the brakes. Or a dozen other things that would look like an accident. And no one questioned it. Sheriff Curtis was the one who wrote the report. Case closed in 48 hours. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Where's the car? Junked, crushed and sold for scrap within a week. Convenient. Luther nodded. Your grandmother knew. She tried to get the case reopened, hired a lawyer, filed complaints. Nothing happened. That's when she started keeping the ledger. You knew about the ledger. I knew she was writing things down. She never showed me, but she'd mention it sometimes. Said if anything happened to her, the truth would come out. Did she say where she kept it? No. And I never asked. The less I knew, the safer I was. I looked at him. This man who'd known my grandmother, who'd known my parents, who'd watched their deaths get swept under the rug and done nothing. Why didn't you do something? Luther's jaw tightened. I have a wife, a son. You think I wanted them to end up like your parents, so you stayed quiet. I stayed alive, and I helped Constance when I could, fixed her roof, brought her groceries in winter, made sure she wasn't completely alone, while she spent 18 years searching for me. She never told me about you. I didn't know you existed until after she died. If I'd known, maybe I could have done something, but I didn't. The bitterness in his voice was real. I wanted to hate him for his cowardice, but I understood it. Fear is a powerful thing. I need help. I need to get this evidence to someone who can actually do something with it. You need the FBI, Portland office. But you can't just walk in. You need an agent who specializes in organized crime. Someone who can't be bought. Do you know anyone like that? No. But I know someone who might. The reporter Dottie mentioned. Angela Reeves. She was digging into Mountain Valley 10 years ago. If she's still investigating, she'll know who to trust. Reeves. Like Preston Whitmore. Luther's face went grim. His daughter. She changed her name, went into journalism, started investigating her father's business. Last I heard, she was still at it. And you think she'll help me? I think she's been waiting for someone to hand her the evidence she needs to take down her father. Where do I find her? Portland, but be careful. Whitmore knows she's investigating. He's had people following her for years. I need to get to Portland. Luther pulled keys from his pocket. Take my truck. Tell Dottie I said it's all right. I can't take your truck. You can and you will. That property is 4 miles from town. You can't walk it every day. And if Whitmore's men are watching, you need to be able to move fast. I took the keys, thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might not make it back. Dottie packed food for the drive. Sandwiches, fruit, a thermos of coffee. She pressed the bag into my hands and held on a moment too long. You be careful. Whitmore's people are everywhere. I will. And come back. Your grandmother would want you to fight, but she'd want you to survive more. I got in Luther's truck and drove back up the mountain. The road was easier in daylight, but my hands still gripped the wheel hard enough to ache. At the house, I went straight upstairs, pulled the footlocker from under the bed. Inside, the money was still there. The ledger, the copies of the letters. I took the ledger and $50,000 in cash, left the rest hidden. If something happened to me, maybe someone would find it eventually. Downstairs, I found a backpack in the closet, loaded it with the ledger, the money, a change of clothes, added the photograph of my grandmother holding me as a baby. Before I left, I walked through the house one more time. Ran my hand along the kitchen counter where my grandmother had stood every morning making coffee. Sat in the rocking chair by the window where she must have sat reading, watching the seasons change. This was home, the first real home I'd ever had, and I was leaving it to walk into a fight I might not survive. But staying meant letting Whitmore win. Staying meant my parents died for nothing. Staying meant my grandmother's 18 years of searching, of hoping, of fighting, all ended in silence. I locked the door behind me and drove down the mountain. The drive to Portland took 4 hours. I stopped once for gas, paying cash, keeping my head down. The clerk barely looked at me. Portland felt overwhelming after the silence of Pinewood. Traffic noise, people everywhere. I found a motel on the east side, paid cash for 3 nights, and locked myself in a room that smelled like old cigarettes and bleach. The Oregonian's building was downtown. I walked in through the main entrance, backpack heavy on my shoulders. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm looking for Angela Reeves. Do you have an appointment number? But I have information she'll want to see. Regarding her father. The receptionist's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. One moment. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, hung up. 5th floor, office 512. The elevator was slow. My reflection in the polished doors showed a girl who looked too young, too thin, too out of place. I straightened my shoulders and tried to look like someone who belonged. Office 512 was at the end of a long hallway. The door was open. Inside, a woman sat at a desk, covered in papers, photos, notes. Early 40s, dark hair, pulled back, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked up. "You asked for me. Are you Angela Reeves?" She stood, closed the door. "I go by Angela Stone professionally. Reeves is my married name. I don't use it anymore. Your father is Preston Whitmore." Her face went very still. "Who are you, Marin Sutherland?" "My grandmother was Constance Sutherland. My parents were Nathan and Evelyn." Angela's eyes widened. "Nathan and Evelyn Sutherland died 18 years ago. They were murdered by your father." "Sit down." I sat. Angela came around the desk, leaned against it, arms crossed. "I've been investigating my father for 12 years. I know what he's done. I know about the trafficking, the money laundering, the people who've disappeared, but I've never been able to prove it. Every time I get close, evidence disappears. Witnesses refuse to talk. Sources dry up. My grandmother kept records, 18 years worth." Angela's breath caught, where I pulled the ledger from my backpack and set it on the desk. Angela opened it, started reading. Her hands began to shake. "This is everything. Names, dates, routes, payments. This is enough to bring RICO charges, enough to dismantle the entire organization." My grandmother tried to find someone to give it to. She couldn't trust anyone. She was right not to. My father has people everywhere. FBI, DEA, state police. He's been building this network for 30 years. Then who can we trust? Angela pulled out her phone. "There's an FBI agent in Seattle, Simone Bellamy. She's been investigating organized crime for 20 years. She's clean. I vetted her myself." "You're sure as I can be. She's the one who helped me get protection when my father found out I was investigating him. He knows he's known for years. He's tried to buy me off, threatened me, had people follow me, but he won't kill me. I'm still his daughter. He's hoping I'll give up eventually." "Will you?" Angela looked at the ledger. "Not now. Not with this." She dialed, put the phone on speaker. The line rang twice. A woman answered, voice professional. "Agent Bellamy. Simone, it's Angela Stone. I have something for you. Something big." "How big, RICO case?" 30 years of evidence against Preston Whitmore and Mountain Valley Holdings." "I'm listening. I need you to come to Portland, today if possible, and I need guarantees, witness protection for my source, full immunity, and a promise that this goes straight to the U.S. Attorney." Bellamy was quiet for a long moment. "Who's your source?" I looked at Angela. She looked at me. "Constance Sutherland's granddaughter. She has the ledger. Constance Sutherland, I remember that name. She called my office 8 years ago. Said she had evidence of a criminal conspiracy in Eastern Oregon. Wanted to meet. Never showed up. She was afraid. Thought you might be compromised." "I'm not. And if you have what you say you have, I can be in Portland in 4 hours. We'll be waiting." Angela hung up. Looked at me. 4 hours. We need to stay here. Don't leave. Don't call anyone. Don't tell anyone where you are. What about Pinewood? Whitmore gave me 48 hours. That's almost up. If he moves on the property, he won't find anything. You said you hid the money and the copies under the bed, in the footlocker. That won't stop him from tearing the place apart, but it might buy us time. I thought about the house, my grandmother's things, the life she'd built there. He's going to destroy it, isn't he? Probably. But we'll rebuild. Once he's in prison, the property will be yours, free and clear." The words sounded hollow. A house could be rebuilt, but the connection to my grandmother, the sense of her presence in those rooms that couldn't be replaced. Angela went to a file cabinet, pulled out a folder. "I've been documenting everything I can about my father's operation. Financial records, shipping manifest testimony from people who were willing to talk off the record. With your ledger, we have enough to connect all of it." She spread papers across the desk, photographs of men in suits, shipping containers, warehouses, a map with routes marked in red. "Your father worked for Whitmore Logistics. It was a front company. They moved drugs and weapons through the mountains, used legitimate shipping to hide it. Your father and mother were accountants. They found discrepancies in the books, started asking questions. Angela pulled out another photo. My parents younger than I'd ever seen them, standing in front of a building with a sign, Whitmore Logistics. They went to the local police. The police were on my father's payroll. They went to the state police, same thing. Finally, they decided to go to the FBI in Portland. They made an appointment for March 15th, 2006. They died March 13th. Angela nodded. Car accident on Highway 26. Sheriff Curtis ruled it mechanical failure. The car was destroyed before anyone could examine it properly. And I survived. You were thrown from the vehicle, landed in bushes 20 feet from the road. A truck driver found you the next morning. Who was the truck driver? Angela flipped through papers. Name was redacted from the official report. But I tracked him down. He died 3 years ago. Natural causes as far as I can tell. What happened to me after he found me? You were taken to the hospital. Child Services was called. Your grandmother showed up, tried to claim you. They wouldn't let her. Said there was a question of custody, that it needed to go through the courts. But my parents were dead. She was my only living relative. The judge who handled the case was Gerald Morrison. He's been on my father's payroll since the 90s. He ruled that Constance was unfit. Had you placed in state care under a false name. So I disappeared. Completely. For 18 years you didn't exist on any official record as Maren Sutherland. You were listed under a different name, moved between facilities, kept hidden. And my grandmother couldn't find me because the system was designed to make sure she couldn't. Angela's voice was quiet. My father is very good at making people disappear. I looked at the photographs. My parents young and hopeful. My grandmother searching. Me, a baby in a car seat, unaware that my entire life was being decided by men in suits who saw me as a loose end. Why didn't he just kill me? Because you were a baby. Even my father has lines he won't cross. He's a monster, but he's not without limits. Killing a child would have brought scrutiny he couldn't afford. So he made you disappear instead. And when I turned 18, when I aged out of the system, he thought I'd be powerless, easy to control if I ever showed up. But your grandmother left you the ledger. She made sure you'd have what you needed to fight back. We sat in silence. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the weight of 18 years pressed down. Angela's phone buzzed. She looked at it, frowned. It's my contact at the sheriff's office. Curtis just filed a warrant to search your grandmother's property. Says there's evidence of drug trafficking. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie, but it gives them legal cover to tear the place apart when within the hour. I stood. I need to go back. Absolutely not. That's exactly what Whitmore wants. You show up, they arrest you for obstruction, or worse. I can't just let them destroy everything. The house doesn't matter, Maren. Your safety matters, your testimony matters. We need you alive to see this through. She was right. I knew she was right, but the thought of strangers tearing through my grandmother's things, destroying the only home I'd ever known, made my chest tight with rage. Can you stop them? Not without revealing our hand. If I call in the FBI now before Bellamy gets here with a proper team, Whitmore will know something's up. He'll destroy evidence, flee the country, disappear. So we let it happen. We let it happen, and we make sure he pays for it. I sat back down, forced myself to breathe. My grandmother lived with this for 18 years. Knowing what he'd done, unable to stop him. She did stop him. She just didn't live to see it. The hours crawled by. Angela ordered food. I couldn't eat. I sat in her office staring at the ledger, at my grandmother's careful handwriting documenting 18 years of crimes. At 6 o'clock, Angela's phone rang. She answered, listened, hung up. Bellamy's here. We took the elevator down. In the lobby, a woman waited. Early 40s, dark skin, gray suit eyes that missed nothing. She looked at me and I felt seen in a way I hadn't since I walked out of St. Catherine's. Maren Sutherland. Yes, I'm Agent Simone Bellamy, FBI Organized Crime Division. I need to see the ledger. We went to a conference room. I pulled the ledger from my backpack and set it on the table. Bellamy opened it, started reading. She read for 30 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up. This is the most comprehensive record of criminal activity I've seen in 20 years. If even half of this is verifiable, we can bring down not just Whitmore, but his entire network. It's all verifiable. My grandmother documented everything. How long did she keep this? 18 years? Since my parents were killed. Bellamy's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry for your loss, both your parents and your grandmother. I just want them to pay. They will, I promise you that, but I need you to understand what you're walking into. The moment we move on this, you become a target. Whitmore will do everything in his power to discredit you, intimidate you, or eliminate you. I've been hidden my entire life. I'm done being afraid. Fear is what keeps people alive. You should be afraid, but you should also be smart. What do you need from me? First, I need you to go into protective custody. We'll put you in a safe house until the arrests are made. How long will that take? With this evidence, we can move fast. Warrants by tomorrow morning. Arrests within 48 hours, and then you testify. Grand jury first, then trial. It could take months, maybe years. I'll do whatever it takes. Bellamy stood. I'm calling my team in Seattle. We're going to need forensic accountants, surveillance teams, tactical units. This is going to be a major operation. What about Pinewood? Whitmore's people are searching my grandmother's property right now. Let them. They won't find the ledger, and their illegal search gives us more charges to file. They're destroying the house. Houses can be rebuilt, lives can't. It was the same thing Angela had said. It didn't make it easier. Bellamy made calls. Within an hour, 2 more FBI agents arrived. A man in his 50s, graying hair, introduced himself as Agent Torres. A woman in her 30s, sharp eyes, was Agent Kim. They listened to my story, looked at the ledger, asked questions, took notes. By midnight, they had a plan. Torres and Kim would drive me to a safe house in Salem. Bellamy would stay in Portland to coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Angela would continue her investigation, providing additional evidence to support the charges. I'd be in protective custody until after the arrests. We left the Oregonian building through a side entrance. The streets were empty. Rain had started falling, turning the pavement black and slick. Torres drove. Kim sat in back with me. Neither spoke. The silence was heavy. We were 20 minutes outside Portland when Kim's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then leaned forward. Torres. Problem. What Sheriff Curtis just issued a warrant for Maren Sutherland. Suspicion of drug trafficking, evidence tampering, and theft. Torres swore. Whitmore's moving fast. Kim looked at me. Did you take anything from the property besides the ledger? $50,000. It was in the footlocker with the ledger. That's what he's calling theft. He's going to claim the money was his, that your grandmother stole it and you continued the theft. But she left it to me. It's my inheritance. Doesn't matter, it gives them legal cover to arrest you. And once you're in custody, Whitmore can get to you. Torres's hands tightened on the wheel. We need to get her to the safe house, now. He accelerated. The car surged forward into the darkness. Kim kept her eyes on her phone. Curtis has units searching for Luther Carver's truck. They know you took it. I looked out the window. Rain streaked the glass. Headlights from other cars blurred into streams of white and red. How did they know so fast? Because someone's feeding them information. Someone knows we have the ledger. Who, I don't know, but we need to assume they're tracking us. Torres took an exit, turned onto a side road, killed the headlights. What are you doing? Seeing if we're being followed. We sat in darkness. Rain hammered the roof. My heart hammered my ribs. After 5 minutes, Torres turned the lights back on and pulled onto the road. We're clear. For now. We drove through small towns, past darkened houses, through forests that pressed close to the road. Every car that passed made my stomach clench. At 2 a.m, we pulled up to a house on the outskirts of Salem. Small, nondescript lights off. Torres got out first, checked the perimeter. Came back and opened my door. Let's go. Inside, the house was furnished but felt empty, like a place no one actually lived. Kim showed me to a bedroom. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but us. We'll be right outside. I locked the door, sat on the bed, the backpack with the ledger and the money sat next to me. I thought about Pinewood, about Dottie and Luther, about the house being torn apart by men with badges and warrants. I thought about my grandmother spending 18 years in that house alone, searching for a granddaughter she'd never find. And I thought about Preston Whitmore sitting somewhere comfortable, making calls, moving pieces, staying ahead of everyone who tried to stop him. Tomorrow, Bellamy had said. Warrants tomorrow. I lay down fully clothed, the backpack under my head. Outside rain fell, inside agents stood guard, and somewhere in the darkness Whitmore's people were searching. I woke to voices outside the bedroom door, Torres and Kim speaking in low, urgent tones. I checked my phone. 6 in the morning. I'd slept 3 hours. The door opened. Kim stood there, face tight. Get dressed, we're moving. What happened? Someone leaked your location. We have units en route, but we need to leave now. I grabbed the backpack, didn't bother changing. Followed her into the hallway. Torres was at the window, gun drawn. 2 vehicles coming up the road, FBI number unmarked, moving too fast. Kim pulled her weapon. Out the back, now! We ran through the kitchen to the back door. Torres went first, scanning the yard. Trees lined the property thick enough to provide cover. Go! Head for the trees! Don't stop! I ran. Behind me, car doors slammed. Voices shouted. The backpack bounced against my spine, ledger and money and everything my grandmother had died protecting. The trees swallowed us. Kim grabbed my arm, pulled me behind a thick trunk. Stay quiet. Through the branches I could see men entering the house. 6 of them. Not police uniforms, not FBI gear. Private security, maybe. Or worse. Torres whispered into his radio. Bellamy, we're compromised. Safe house is blown. Need immediate extraction. The radio crackled. Bellamy's voice came through tense. Where are you, Woods? Behind the property. Multiple hostiles on site. Hold position. I'm sending a team. Torres looked at Kim. ETA 20 minutes. We don't have 20 minutes, then we run. We moved through the woods, keeping low. Behind us, flashlight beams swept the darkness. Dogs barked. Kim swore softly. They brought tracking dogs. How far to the nearest road? Half a mile. Maybe more. We won't make it. Torres stopped, turned to face me. Give me the backpack. No, they're tracking you. If I take it and go a different direction, they'll follow me. You and Kim can get clear. I'm not giving you the ledger. Marin, this isn't a debate. That evidence is worth more than any of our lives. We need to split up. He was right. I knew he was right, but handing over the backpack felt like giving up the only piece of my grandmother I had left. Kim's hand touched my shoulder. He's good at this. He'll get it to Bellamy. I pulled off the backpack, handed it to Torres. Don't lose it. I won't. He disappeared into the trees, moving fast and loud enough to draw attention. Kim pulled me in the opposite direction. We moved slowly now, carefully trying not to snap branches or disturb leaves. Behind us, the dogs' barking grew louder, then faded as they followed Torres's trail. We reached a creek. Kim didn't hesitate. Stepped into the water, motioned for me to follow. Walk in the water, it'll confuse the scent. The water was ice cold, soaking through my shoes. We waded downstream for what felt like hours, but was probably 10 minutes. Finally, Kim climbed onto the far bank. Keep moving. My feet were numb. My jeans clung heavy and wet, but I kept moving. We reached a road as the sun came up. Kim flagged down a passing truck. The driver, an old man with kind eyes, didn't ask questions. Just let us climb into the bed. Where you headed, Salem? I can get you to the highway. That'll work. He drove slowly, like he understood we needed time. Kim sat with her back against the cab gun, hidden under her jacket, eyes scanning every car that passed. When we reached the highway, Kim thanked the driver and we walked to a gas station. She made a call from a payphone. Bellamy, it's Kim. We're clear. Torres. She listened. Her face went tight. Understood. We're at the junction of 22 and 99. Send someone. She hung up. Torres. He led them on a chase for 40 minutes. Lost them in the hills. He's meeting us in Salem, and the ledger safe. Relief hit so hard my knees went weak. I leaned against the payphone, breathing hard. Who leaked the safe house location? We don't know yet. Bellamy's running an internal investigation. Someone in the FBI is working for Whitmore. Kim's jaw set. Looks that way. A black sedan pulled into the gas station 20 minutes later. Bellamy was driving. Torres sat in the passenger seat, my backpack on his lap. I climbed into the back seat. Bellamy didn't waste time. Change of plans. We're not using another safe house. Too much risk of infiltration. So what do? We move fast. I've already contacted the U.S. attorney. With the ledger and Angela's additional evidence, we have enough for warrants. We're executing them today within the next 6 hours. But I need your testimony first. We need to get everything on record before Whitmore has a chance to retaliate. We're FBI field office in Portland. We'll use a secure room. Record your statement, then we move. What about me after the arrests? Witness protection. New identity, new city. You disappear until trial. For how long? Could be months, could be years. I looked out the window. The sun was fully up now, burning off the morning mist. What about Pinewood, my grandmother's property? It's evidence now. We'll secure it after the arrests. But it's going to be a while before you can return. Bellamy drove us to the Portland FBI building. Underground parking. Elevator straight to the 4th floor. No windows, no public access. The interview room was small. Cameras in every corner. A table, 2 chairs, recording equipment. Bellamy sat across from me. Hit record. State your full name for the record. Maren Elizabeth Sutherland. Date of birth October 12, 2005. Current address, I don't have one. I was released from St. Catherine's home 3 days ago. Bellamy asked questions for 3 hours. About my parents, about my grandmother. About the letters, the ledger, the money. About Preston Whitmore's visit to the barn. About Sheriff Curtis and the warrant. I answered everything. Gave every detail I could remember. When we finished, Bellamy turned off the recorder. That's enough. We have what we need. What happens now? Now we arrest Preston Whitmore. She left the room. Came back 10 minutes later with papers. Warrants are signed. Federal charges: racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, drug trafficking, money laundering, witness tampering, obstruction of justice. State charges pending. We have teams mobilizing now. How many arrests? 47. Whitmore, his executive team, Sheriff Curtis, 3 other county sheriffs, 2 judges, half a dozen police officers, various business associates. 47. The same number as the people who died because of Whitmore's operation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Where will they take Whitmore? Federal detention in Portland. He'll be held without bail. Flight risk and danger to the community. I want to be there when you arrest him. Bellamy's eyes narrowed. Absolutely not. You're a witness. You need to stay away from the operation. I need to see him arrested. I need to know it's real. Bellamy studied my face. You can watch from the tactical van. But you stay inside. You don't approach. You don't interfere. Deal. The tactical van was windowless except for monitors showing feeds from body cameras and drones. 6 agents crowded inside, coordinating the simultaneous arrests across 3 counties. I sat in the corner watching screens. One showed Whitmore's office building in downtown Portland. Another showed Sheriff Curtis's house. A third showed a warehouse in eastern Oregon. Bellamy's voice came through the radio. All teams stand by. Execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute. On the screens, doors burst open. FBI agents flooded into buildings. On Whitmore's feed, I watched agents storm through a lobby upstairs into an executive suite. Preston Whitmore sat at a massive desk phone to his ear. He looked up as agents entered. Didn't move, didn't run. Just set down the phone carefully. Preston Whitmore, you're under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and 43 other federal charges. Stand up. Hands behind your back. Whitmore stood slowly. Let them cuff him. His face showed no emotion, no fear, no anger, nothing. As they led him out, he looked directly at the camera. It felt like he was looking at me. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The agent read him his rights. Whitmore didn't speak. On another screen, Sheriff Curtis was being dragged out of his house in handcuffs, shouting about unlawful arrest and police harassment. On a third, a judge was led from his chambers, head down, trying to hide his face. 47 arrests executed in under an hour. Bellamy climbed into the van. "It's done. Whitmore's in custody, so are the others. What happens next? Arraignment tomorrow morning. Then we start building the case for trial. How long until trial? Federal court moves faster than state. 6 months, maybe. Possibly sooner, given the evidence. And I testify you're our star witness. Without you, we have the ledger. With you, we have the story, the human cost. The jury needs to see that." I nodded. On the screen, Whitmore sat in the back of an FBI vehicle, staring straight ahead. Still no expression. He doesn't look worried. Men like Whitmore never do. They're convinced they're untouchable, that their money and connections will save them. Will they not this time? The van drove me to a hotel near the airport. Not a safe house, just a regular hotel under a false name. "Torres and Kim took adjoining rooms," Sleep Bellamy said. "Tomorrow we start preparing your testimony." I couldn't sleep. I sat on the bed watching news coverage of the arrests. Every channel led with it. Massive FBI operation takes down Oregon crime syndicate. 47 arrested in multi-county raid. Preston Whitmore, business leader, faces federal charges. Angela appeared on screen, interviewed outside the Oregonian building. "This is the result of years of investigation. My father built a criminal empire that corrupted law enforcement, the judiciary, and legitimate businesses across the state. Today, justice begins. Do you have any comment for your father?" Angela's face was hard. "I hope he spends the rest of his life in prison." My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway. Maren Dottie's voice strained. "Are you all right? I'm safe. Are you okay?" "Luther and I are fine, but the property, they tore it apart. How bad? The house is mostly intact, but the barn, they ripped up the floor, tore down walls. It's destroyed." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. You did the right thing. Constance would be proud. I wish she was here to see it. She is sweetheart, in her way." "When can I come back?" Dottie hesitated. "There are reporters all over town. FBI agents processing the crime scenes. It's chaos." "Give it time. I will. And Maren, thank you for finishing what she started." I hung up, looked at the television. Whitmore's mugshot filled the screen. Expensive suit rumpled, hair disheveled. But his eyes still cold, still calculating. The arraignment was at 9 the next morning. Bellamy took me to the courthouse through a back entrance. We sat in the gallery behind the prosecution table. Whitmore was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. He scanned the courtroom and his eyes found me, held for a long moment, then looked away. The judge was a woman in her 60s, gray hair, stern expression. "The defendant will rise." Whitmore stood. "You are charged with 64 federal counts, including racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, drug trafficking, money laundering, and witness tampering." "How do you plead?" Whitmore's lawyer, an expensive suit with perfect hair, stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." "Bail." The prosecution requests the defendant be held without bail. He is an extreme flight risk with unlimited financial resources and a history of witness intimidation. The defense argues that Mr. Whitmore is a respected businessman with deep ties to the community. He poses no flight risk and should be released on reasonable bail. The judge looked at a file. The evidence presented shows the defendant ran a criminal organization for 30 years. Multiple witnesses have been threatened or killed. Bail is denied. The defendant will be held in federal custody pending trial. Whitmore's face didn't change. They let him out. He didn't look at me again. Bellamy touched my arm. "It's over. He's locked up." It didn't feel over. It felt like the beginning. The next 3 months were a blur. Depositions, meetings with prosecutors, reviewing evidence. Angela and I met regularly, coordinating our testimonies. She had financial records going back 15 years. I had my grandmother's ledger. Together we painted a complete picture of Whitmore's empire. The trial was scheduled for January. Federal courthouse in Portland, expected to last 6 weeks. I moved into a small apartment in Salem using a false name. Torres had been reassigned to a task force in Seattle, but Kim checked in daily, making sure I was safe. She taught me defensive driving and basic self-defense, just in case. In December, Bellamy called with news. We found more evidence. Financial records showing Whitmore paid the director of St. Catherine's $2 million in 2006. The same year my parents died. Exactly. She was paid to hide you, to return your grandmother's letters, to tell Constance you weren't there. Is she still alive, Miriam Ashford? Retired 5 years ago, living in Vancouver, Washington. Are you arresting her? We already did. She's cooperating. Full confession in exchange for a reduced sentence. What did she say that Whitmore told her if your grandmother ever found you, he'd kill everyone involved? She was terrified, so she took the money and buried your records under false names. And my grandmother's letters, Ashford returned them herself. Never processed them through the mail system, stamped them and sent them back to make it look legitimate. So my grandmother thought the system was broken when really it was just one person being paid to lie. One person who held your entire life in her hands and chose money over doing the right thing. The rage came hot and sharp. I want to testify against her too. You will. Her case is being prosecuted separately. But she's a witness in Whitmore's trial. You'll see her there. On Christmas Eve, I visited Pinewood for the first time since the arrests. Dottie and Luther had invited me for dinner. The town felt different, quieter. Reporters had left. FBI had finished processing evidence. Life was returning to something like normal. The property looked worse than I'd imagined. The barn's interior was gutted, floorboards ripped up, walls torn down. They'd been looking for more evidence, more hidden rooms. Found nothing. The house was mostly intact, but someone had searched every room. Drawers emptied. Closets torn apart. My grandmother's photographs were scattered across the floor. I spent an hour putting them back, hanging them on the walls where they'd been, making it look lived in again. Luther found me in the bedroom. We can fix it. The barn will take work, but it's structurally sound. The house just needs cleaning. When can I move back after the trial? Once Whitmore's convicted and there's no more danger. What if he's acquitted? Luther's face hardened. He won't be, not with the evidence you have. But what if then you disappear? Witness protection, new name, new life, and this place. It'll still be here, waiting. I looked around the bedroom, my grandmother's room, the place she'd slept for 40 years alone, searching for a granddaughter she'd never find. I won't let him win. She didn't give up. I won't either. That's what makes you a Sutherland. The trial began on January 8th. The courthouse was packed. Media filled the hallway. Protesters outside held signs demanding justice. The prosecution team was led by Assistant U.S. Attorney David Nakamura. 40 years old reputation for never losing a case. He shook my hand before we entered. You ready as I'll ever be. Just tell the truth, that's all you need to do. The jury selection took 3 days, 12 people who would decide Whitmore's fate. They looked ordinary, teachers, accountants, a retired nurse. People who had no idea they were about to hear testimony about murder, corruption, and a criminal empire. The prosecution's opening statement was surgical. Preston Whitmore built his fortune on the bodies of innocent people. For 30 years, he ran a criminal organization that trafficked drugs and weapons, corrupted law enforcement and the judiciary, and murdered anyone who threatened to expose him. The evidence will show that he personally ordered the deaths of Nathan and Evelyn Sutherland. That he paid millions to hide their daughter. That he destroyed families, communities, and lives in his pursuit of profit. By the end of this trial, you will have no doubt that Preston Whitmore is guilty of every charge against him. The defense's opening was predictable. Preston Whitmore is a successful businessman who built a logistics company from nothing. Yes, some of his employees engaged in criminal activity. But Mr. Whitmore had no knowledge of these activities. He was betrayed by people he trusted. The prosecution wants to paint him as a criminal mastermind. The evidence will show he's a victim of his own employees' greed. The prosecution called its first witness, a former employee who'd transported drugs through the mountains. He testified about Root's payoffs quotas. The defense tore into him on cross-examination. You're testifying in exchange for immunity, correct? Yes. So you have every incentive to lie to save yourself. I'm telling the truth according to a convicted felon who wants to avoid prison. It went like that for days. Witness after witness, each one describing a piece of Whitmore's operation, each one getting shredded on cross-examination. On day 8, they called Angela. She walked to the stand calmly, took the oath, sat down. State your name for the record, Angela Stone. Formerly Angela Reeves. What is your relationship to the defendant? He's my father. The courtroom rippled with whispers. The judge called for order. Ms. Stone, why did you change your name? Because I didn't want to be associated with a criminal. Objection. Assuming facts not in evidence. Sustained. The witness will refrain from characterizations. Angela didn't flinch. I changed my name because I began investigating my father's business 12 years ago. What I found horrified me. What did you find? Evidence of a criminal conspiracy spanning 3 decades. Drug trafficking, money laundering, bribery, murder. She spent 3 hours on the stand walking the jury through financial records showing how money flowed from legitimate businesses into offshore accounts, then back to pay bribes and fund operations. The defense attacked her credibility. You have a contentious relationship with your father, don't you? Yes. You've publicly stated you hope he dies in prison. I hope he's held accountable for his crimes. You stand to inherit his estate if he's convicted and his assets are seized by the government. I don't want his money. I want justice. But you'd benefit financially from his conviction. I'd benefit from knowing he can't hurt anyone else. The jury watched her carefully. Some looked sympathetic, others skeptical. On day 12, they called me. I walked to the stand, throat dry, took the oath, sat down. Whitmore stared at me from the defense table. I stared back. State your name. Maren Elizabeth Sutherland. How old are you? 19. Where do you currently reside? I don't have a permanent residence. I'm in witness protection. Why? Because the defendant threatened to kill me if I testified. Objection overruled. The witness may answer. I spent 4 hours telling my story. The letters, the ledger, the money. Whitmore's visit to the barn, his threat. The defense tried to break me. You claim my client threatened you. Did anyone else witness this threat? No. So we only have your word. Yes. You also claim you found $150,000 in cash. Convenient that this money appeared right when you needed it to pay taxes. It was in the footlocker. My grandmother left it for me. Or you fabricated this story to justify keeping stolen money. It's not stolen. It's my inheritance. An inheritance from a woman you never met, who you can't prove even knew you existed. I have 247 letters proving she knew I existed. Letters you claim were returned, but how do we know you didn't write them yourself? The rage flared hot. Why would I write 247 letters to myself over 18 years? Why would I invent a grandmother who spent her entire life searching for me? Why would I make up a story about parents I never knew being murdered? The defense attorney stepped back. Perhaps because it makes for a compelling narrative. Perhaps because you knew it would be difficult to verify. Perhaps because you wanted to inherit valuable land and needed a reason to justify it. I looked at the jury. My parents were killed when I was 1 year old. I grew up in foster care believing I was alone. When I found out I had a grandmother who'd tried to find me, who'd written me letters every birthday and Christmas for 18 years, it changed everything. Not because of land or money, because for the first time in my life I knew someone had loved me. Someone had wanted me. And that man, my voice broke, that man took that away. He killed my parents. He paid people to hide me. He destroyed my grandmother's life. And he did it all for profit. The courtroom was silent. The defense attorney tried to recover. Your Honor, this is clearly an emotional ploy. The jury will disregard the witness's characterizations and focus on factual testimony. But the damage was done. I saw it in the jurors' faces. They believed me. The trial lasted 6 weeks, 53 witnesses, thousands of pages of evidence, hours of testimony. On February 14th, closing arguments, the prosecution was devastating. Preston Whitmore is a murderer. The evidence is overwhelming. You've heard from his own daughter that he ran a criminal empire. You've heard from Maren Sutherland about how he destroyed her family. You've seen the ledger documenting 18 years of crimes. You've heard testimony from dozens of witnesses describing his operation. The defense wants you to believe he knew nothing, that he was just a businessman betrayed by employees. But the evidence shows he controlled every aspect. He gave the orders, he paid the bribes, he ordered the murders. Find him guilty, hold him accountable. Give the families he destroyed the justice they deserve. The defense was weak. The prosecution has presented a lot of testimony from criminals seeking immunity. They want you to convict based on the word of felons and a daughter with a vendetta. But where is the direct evidence? Where is the proof that Preston Whitmore personally committed these crimes? It doesn't exist, because he didn't do it. Find him not guilty, send a message that in America we don't convict people based on speculation and vendetta. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On February 17th, they returned. I sat in the gallery, hands clenched. Bellamy sat next to me. Have you reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. The foreman stood, paper in hand. On count 1, racketeering, how do you find guilty? On count 2, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. Count after count. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 64 counts, 64 guilty verdicts. Whitmore's face went white. His lawyer slumped. Behind me, Angela started crying. The judge's voice was steel. Preston Whitmore, you have been found guilty of 64 federal crimes. Sentencing is set for April 15th. You are remanded into custody pending sentencing. They led him away. He looked at me one last time. And for the first time since I'd met him, I saw fear in his eyes. Bellamy squeezed my shoulder. It's over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I pushed through without comment, got into a waiting car, drove away. That night I went to Pinewood. The property was dark. I let myself into the house. In my grandmother's bedroom, I pulled out the box of letters, all 247. I read the last one again. Come home, Maren. This is your home. It always was. I set the letter down, looked around the room. I'm home, Grandma. And he's going to pay for what he did, I promise. Sentencing was 8 weeks later, the courtroom packed again. Whitmore stood, orange jumpsuit shackled. The judge looked at him with disgust. Preston Whitmore, you have been convicted of operating a criminal enterprise that destroyed countless lives. You murdered innocent people. You corrupted institutions meant to protect the public. You showed no remorse, no mercy, no humanity. The maximum sentence for your crimes is life without possibility of parole. That is the sentence I impose, life in federal prison. You will never be free again. Whitmore's knees buckled. Guards caught him. Court adjourned. They let him out. He didn't look back. 2 weeks after sentencing, I returned to Pinewood. The reporters were gone. The FBI had released the property. It was mine, free and clear. Luther helped me rebuild the barn. Dottie brought food every day until I learned to cook. Their son Callum taught me how to fix the truck engine when it sputtered. I enrolled in online classes at Oregon State, environmental science. I wanted to understand the land my grandmother had protected. In June, I established the Constance Sutherland Foundation, a nonprofit helping children in foster care connect with lost family members. We'd reunited 12 kids with relatives in our first 6 months. Angela visited monthly. We'd sit on the porch, drink coffee, talk about our fathers. Hers was in prison. Mine was in the ground. Both had shaped us in ways we were still learning to understand. On a Saturday in October, exactly 1 year after I'd first arrived in Pinewood, I drove to the cemetery. The autumn air smelled like wood smoke and fallen leaves. I was 20 now. a year older than the frightened 19-year-old who'd stepped off the bus with $247 and no idea what she'd find. I carried 247 roses, one for each letter my grandmother had written. I laid them across 3 graves, my parents, my grandmother, the space between marked for me eventually when my time came. I did it, Grandma. Whitmore will never hurt anyone again. The wind moved through the pines. I'm living in your house, taking care of the land, building the life you wanted for me. I knelt, touched the cold stone. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for loving me even when you couldn't find me. Thank you for fighting. When I stood, the sun was setting. I drove back to the house, parked the truck, walked to the porch. The barn stood solid and red against the darkening sky. The house glowed warm with light from within. I'd spent 18 years believing no one wanted me. I'd been wrong. My grandmother had wanted me every single day. She'd searched, written, hoped, and never stopped fighting. And now I had what she'd wanted me to have all along: a home, a purpose, proof that I mattered. I went inside and closed the door.